we become the more American every day. Many of you descendant of those who sought these shores generations ago, many others recently arrived, and so it will continue. Nati naturam habilis. Gaze about you, my fellow Americans, as I have often said, and you will see a greater representation of the family of man than any nation upon this globe can boast. I have said, shall oppressed humanity find no asylum on this globe? We are that asylum. And by whose providence? God's indeed. Well, citizens, as I was venturing out here to greet you and to reflect upon the lovely time I had in this city now 21 years ago, I stopped at an ordinary to refresh myself, and there, as I went in, I saw but one client, a young boy, seated at a table, engaged in reading a book. I walked over and begged his apology if that I might take a chair. He said, "Oh, yes, sir, please, indeed you do. You must take a chair. You look wearied from your travel." I said, "I thank you, lad. Tell me, what book are you reading?" He said, "Oh, I'm reading a volume of Cicero in his native tongue, the Latin language." Oh, I said, I have always delighted to practice Latin, let alone Greek, and marvel at the wisdom, the integrity of the ancient Romans. Pray tell me, is there anything that you have read of Cicero that excites you? He said, "Yes, sir, there is indeed. His statement that a people must never forget their history." Well, I knew well of what he spoke. As Cicero wrote thousands of years ago about the history 1,000 years before his day, he said a people must never forget their history. For as an individual cannot forget their own personal history, so they may not make the same mistakes they made in their past, Cicero said it is incumbent upon a citizenry not to forget their history. For he said if they do, they will remain children all their lives, ready to be led rather than to lead themselves. Well, he then thought he might question me, and he said, "So pray tell me, sir, did you see any action in the American Revolution? Were you there?" I said, yes, in fact I was. I was a colonel of the militia. He said, "Oh, you must have worn a sword. You must have led an attack." I said, "No, lad, no, I led a retreat." I did, perhaps some of you know, though he had no idea who I was, that I had to lead the retreat of our Commonwealth and our government, then in Richmond, westwards from the invasion of General Benedict Arnold and General Lord Cornwallis. Well, then I was worried that he might question me the further, perhaps even of my private life. So I said, "Lad, tell me indeed, what ocracy do you think is the great strength, the foundation of the success of these United States these last 31 years?" Well, what ocracy do you think most are wont to reply?
Democracy.
Democracy. Democracy is what most people are wont to reply. But do you know, I rarely use the word democracy. Not because I disbelieve it, simply because I do not think it is a successful method of government in this modern world, particularly when we double our population every 20, 25 years. Did you hear the population of these 17 United States is now little more than 6 million people? Is that not extraordinary? We now have 7 cities larger than 25,000 in population. Do you know what they are? The 7 large cities of these United States.
Boston.
New York.
Boston.
Philadelphia. Boston.
Charleston.
No, not Richmond.
Charleston.
Atlanta? I've never heard of Atlanta. Where's that?
Charleston.
Baltimore? No, one of them is near Baltimore. Washington? Good Lord, no, not Washington. Washington is the seat of our government. That will never grow very large.
Charleston.
No, absolutely not. No, that is where our government has been seated, but you know not one member of our government or government employees lives in their own home on their own property in Washington City.
Annapolis.
Everybody lives in boarding houses. They're only there for a short time. I may live in the president's house, but it does not belong to me. Who does it belong to?
Us.
It belongs to you. And did you just read in the newspapers, recently printed, we now have 63 government employees. Is that not extraordinary? 63 government employees. So you see, Washington City will never grow very large. No, the one I speak of near Baltimore is Annapolis. And then in the mouth of the James River, Norfolk, and south down the coast is Charleston and Savannah. Lower those are, and I beg your pardon, we bought one 4 years ago.
New Orleans.
New Orleans. Absolutely. So no, I do not believe that a pure democracy, the way it was formalized by the ancient Greeks, is really practicable today. In the ancient Greek world, the city-states settled far from one another, sparsely settled in themselves, could well afford for the citizens to leave their families, leave their farms, leave their places of business, come together and argue the differences of their opinion. Imagine trying to do that today. In fact, have you ever thought to yourself, the past was not less intelligent than we are today? Now were they? They simply had not made that further scientific discovery. They had not taken more boldly that step into their future, which is now our present. The ancient Greeks knew well that as mankind is created different in face and form, so are we created different in mind. They welcomed a difference of opinion. They encouraged the public conversation and debate because they knew the end is always compromise and resolution for the common good.